Hello, Wargamers. By popular demand of one, today I'm going to be talking about the forces of the Mephrit Dynasty, which is a detachment and a handful of formations for the Necrons that were released with Shield of Baal Exterminatus. Before I get into that, I'm going to make a short mention of the Archangel Sanguine Wing formation, which I talked about last week. Thanks to a commenter in the last video, I have been shown the value in not second-guessing the correct read when reading the rules, because I just thought it was too good to be true, read it incorrectly repeatedly after I read it correctly, and I'm very, very happy that I was set straight with that, because getting 20 power weapons and 10 combi weapons instead of 2 power weapons and 1 combi weapon is clearly much better, and like was mentioned before, is up to 400 points worth of free stuff. So that detachment went from getting a C+ rating to definite A+. Moving on though, one disclaimer about my knowledge of the Necrons is it's extremely limited. That said, I do know that the internal balance of the current Necron Codex is way off, and that only a handful of their models are actually fielded in competitive play. And most of the formations, actually I think it's all of the formations that are available to the Necrons for the Mephrit Dynasty, include a number of the models that are currently not really liked by competitive Necron players. I am going to still give them a pretty, optimistic rating anyway, despite, my general ignorance about the Necrons, mainly because if the Necrons Codex, which is pretty much guaranteed to be released by the end of this month, follows the trend that the other 7th edition Codex releases have, the internal balance of the Codex is going to improve dramatically. Obviously, it will not be perfect, but it will be hopefully to the point where you don't feel like a lot of the Necron players seem to feel about choosing the general quotes bad Necron units. So moving on, the Mephrit Dynasty cohort detachment can have up to 8 troop units, with 3 of them being compulsory, 2 HQ, obviously with 1 compulsory, and then the rest of the formation or detachment is the same as a regular combined arms detachment. The command benefits are you get to reroll your command traits if you choose this as your primary detachment, and the other one is Crown World Reawakened, and with this you get to reroll failed reanimation protocol rolls of 1 for troop units, which is, I imagine, by and large, why you would want to take this formation. I know that I absolutely hate it when Necrons I kill stand back up, and if you have 8 available troop slots in your force organization chart, you're going to maybe want to take more troops if they're going to be standing up more often. So that is definitely a flavorful and fun rule, at least from my perspective, even if I might hate it when I play against it. And it definitely brings the whole wall of undying soldiers moving slowly toward you, shooting at you the entire way, to the tabletop in a bit stronger fashion than the regular Necrons rules allow them to. The Warlord traits, like the Blood Angels, the Archangels, and also the Flesh Tearers traits that I haven't gotten to yet, all are very reminiscent of the personal traits table from the general rulebook, and are as follows. Your Warlord has Eternal Warrior. Your Warlord has Haywire special rule when making melee attacks. There is the re-rolling failed morale, pinning, and fear test that your Warlord and all of his friendly units within 12 inches have, that the Archangels also have. There is the Adamantium Will special rule. There is the Warlord and any unit that he joins have Hatred, and then there is your Warlord has It Will Not Die. All of which I feel really fit the Necrons very well. So, once again, you're going to choose it if you want to do the personal traits, and the possibility of just a general Necron Overlord having Eternal Warrior or It Will Not Die just feels extremely Necron-y from my perspective. So I like him a lot. The relics they get, the God Shackle, is only allowed to be taken by Cryptex, and what it does is it allows you to nominate a Catan shard in your army, and that Catan shard gets +1 to his strength and toughness, as long as the bearer of the God Shackle, which, like I said, is a Cryptech, is still alive. And that is probably just kind of okay. For 10 points, it's not bad at all. But I'm going to come back to this one in a few minutes here. The next one is Edge of Eternity, which is a War Scythe that has its +2 strength, AP2, melee, armor, bane, executioner, and two-handed. And the executioner rule gives the precision strikes special rule. So it's more expensive than a regular War Scythe, as at least I believe that it is, but precision strikes is pretty fun rule to have. I don't know if it makes the item worth taking, but it's definitely not a bad item on its own. And then the last one is the Solar Thermosite, which you can give to an Overlord or a Cryptech, and it gives them +1 to the strength on their ranged and melee weapons, and it also allows them to reroll saving throws of 1. So, interesting war gear. Some of it is just kind of in line with other Necron items, I'm sure. The God Shackle is the one that I am fixated on, though, and that is because of the Conclave of the Burning One formation. And that formation includes 1 Catan shard and 2 Cryptechs, and they are a unit. And the reason the God Shackle comes into play is because of the Conclave special rule. So what that rule does is, even though the Cryptechs have the common toughness, this rule says that the Catan shard is instead the toughness you are using when you're rolling to wound. And the God Shackle increases that by 1. So that is going to essentially make the formation very, very difficult to take down. And that is only improved because of the other special rule that the formation gets, which is Forbidden Knowledge. And what that does is it gives the Catan shard a Feel No Pain of 5 up. And this is reduced by 1 for each Cryptech that dies. So if one Cryptech dies and it's just the Catan shard and the 1 Cryptech, it then becomes a 6+ Feel No Pain. And then if that last Cryptech dies, he loses it altogether. But what this is really saying is you're going to stick one of those Cryptechs with the God Shackle, increase the Catan shard's toughness by 1. All of the people are going to shoot at the Catan shard, and the Catan shard is going to use his save and then the Feel No Pain to try to mitigate as much of the damage as possible. And I recall the Catan shards having high toughness, 7 or 8 somewhere in there if I remember correctly. And that is going to make it incredibly difficult for them to be brought down by sheer weight of shots. It's going to have to be dedicated anti-armor units that are going to be shooting at this one. And that is going to really limit the number of things that are going to be capable of killing the Catan shard. So, while I'm relatively unfamiliar with those models, I am pretty confident that anybody who plays Necrons or plays against Necrons frequently is going to give that a pretty positive assessment. The next one, Zarathusa's Royal Decurion. This formation has a pretty cool special rule, and the formation itself includes an Overlord, 1 unit of Immortals, 2 units of Warriors, a Ghost Arc, a Doom Scythe, a Triarch Praetorian unit, a Triarch Stalker, 1 unit of Death Marks, and 2 Wraiths. 2 units of Wraiths, I mean. And from what I gather, about half of those models are used regularly, and the other half less regularly. Hopefully that will change with the upcoming Codex release. The reason that you would want to take this particular formation is because the special rule allows you to apply, at the beginning of each turn, the Crusader, Counterattack, Fearless, or Monster Hunter special rule to all non-vehicle models in the formation. So, Crusader, definitely going to make you move up the field faster. Counterattack, going to be useful if you're about to be assaulted, obviously. Fearless is good, and Monster Hunter is also very good. So this is going to give you bit of extra flexibility with the Force as the game progresses. So it's kind of a choose-your-own-chapter tactics for Necrons, which is appealing, and despite the fact that, from what I gather, about half the models are less desirable right now, hopefully they will be improved, or at least, brought into line with the others, regardless of how it is they choose to do that. The next one, Anrakir's Strategic Decurion, has kind of a similar issue where about half the models are commonly used and the other half are less commonly used. This one includes Anrakir the Traveler, 1 unit of Mortals, 2 units of Warriors, a Ghost Arc, a Doom Scythe, and a unit of Death Marks. And this one allows you to reroll the Seize the Initiative die, and as long as Anrakir the Traveler is still alive, you can reroll reserve rolls. So much like the Archangels formations, this one is very interested in getting units held in reserve on the table with extreme reliability. So, like I said, hopefully the models in that particular formation that are considered subpar will be brought into line with the rest, and that will become a more desirable formation. The last one is the Guardians of Perdita, or Perdita. I'm not entirely certain how they want that pronounced, but I do know that Perdita is a word, I think it's in Spanish. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I love to make just, off-the-cuff assumptions about words, especially when I'm entirely wrong about it. So this one includes all 3 of the previous formations, and obviously they all get their own little special rules, but on top of that, as long as the Necron Overlord from Zarathusa's Royal Decurion has not been removed as a casualty, the rule that allows you to choose the Crusader, Counterattack Fearless, or Monster Hunter special rule for all of your infantry models, or non-vehicle models, at the beginning of each turn is applied to every model that you have that is not a vehicle, not just the models from that formation. So that is essentially going to be an entire large army, probably above 2,000 points, to field the Guardians of Perdita, however it is that it is supposed to be said, and give them all the fun rules that Zarathusa's Royal Decurion gets. And as with the last 2 formations, once internal balance on the Necron Codex is fixed a little bit, like I expect it to be, I would expect that this formation will be somewhere along the lines of the giant Blood Angels, Archangels, and Flesh Terrors army formations that I have already or am going to, in short order, talk about in next week and the week following. And they all, like I said, have very, very great just kind of thematic appeal. And even if they aren't going to be competitive on the, in tournaments, they look like they're going to be generally well-rounded forces that are just going to be a lot of fun to use. So, from the mouth of somebody that is largely ignorant of how Necrons work, other than the fact that they like to stand up and shoot you in the face after you've already shot them in the face, I think that the formations look like they're very fun, and I really hope that the Necron players are going to feel the same. So next week is going to be Flesh Terrors, like I said last week, and this time it's actually going to happen because there are no more Necrons that are going to be released, and I much prefer to talk about things I actually have some degree of knowledge of. So until next week, happy wargaming.